Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to have you here today. We're doing another one of our round of CxOBytes, which we've really enjoyed. It's been great to see the engagement that we've been getting with these. And today I'm really thrilled to be able to talk to Charlotte Walshe from Jade Software, an iconic New Zealand software brand. So we might talk about that at some stage. But we're going to get right into it and say kia ora and good morning, Charlotte.
Kia ora, Craig. Great to see you.
Yeah, you too. Hey, look, we've been starting these. I know we're at level 2 now, and we're sort of slowly moving back to offices, and I presume Jade's got some plan to get back that way. But we've been talking about home office setup. Obviously, I've got a virtual background because I really want to be in a cafe, but I'm not. And you're at home. So what did you do when suddenly you were at home?
I'm a bit of a roamer, so I'm not really good at sitting in one place. So, whether it was back in the office before or in fact now, I'm not really good at being in just one place. So I tend to move around the house, and that's why I love my iPad or my laptop. So I was just having a meeting before, and I was standing in the laundry. Not because it was a great place to be, but because I was hiding from the dog who was making a lot of noise. Right now I'm in a room with some books and a gas fire, so that's nice and warm. And I like to move around the house basically. And I think I find that in being in this work from home space, I spend so much time in video conferences. It doesn't really matter where I am. It's not like I have to find somewhere much of the time to bash out stuff on my laptop. It's more sort of consuming and discussing and reviewing. And so it doesn't really matter where I am for that. Having said that, in level 4, I took some meetings walking, which was great. But I tried to do that the other day, and I was blown away at the traffic. I could not do a walking meeting with the traffic because I was on and off mute the whole time. It was crazy. But yeah, anywhere is a great place for an office. Park bench, good for me.
That's a really good point. That traffic thing, I've really noticed that as well. We're near, we live in Silverdale up the coast from Auckland, and we have an intersection here which right nearby us. It goes out to Whangaparoa, and at level 4, you could stand there and not see a car for minutes at a time. Now it's just crazy again. Hey, look, we're talking about leadership this morning, not about our traffic things. As an introduction, do you want to just give a little bit about your background, how you've got to where you are now? We mentioned beforehand you're on the board of Enable, so you've got some connection to connectivity in Christchurch. But yeah, so how about a little bit of a story about who you are and where you've got here?
Okay, cool. Well, let's see. In fact, when I came on to today, we commented on the fact I had my Star Trek Bridge virtual background on, and that's ever since I was tiny. I've been a huge Star Trek fan, particularly original series, and then on from there. But what that meant was that when I was a kid, I always wanted to be an astronaut, and turned out that helped me figure out how to be quite planful about things. So I'm not actually an astronaut, of course, now, so that plan failed. But the good part about it was it got me in the way of thinking, right, well, if I want to be there, then what do I need to do to get there? And so I think when I was 9, I wrote to NASA. They nicely sent something back telling me how I could get to be an astronaut and the steps I needed to take. So I kind of lined up my school and then university against that. And then realized that, there were probably some other things that made sense to do instead. But so that led me through to university ended up with Master's Physics. And then I thought I'd like to go and do something for 6 months, earn some money, and then head off and do the OE. But I got into a job in a plastics factory as a quality assistant, which was hugely embarrassing, in terms of talking with a physicist guy. Oh my God, you went from physics to doing plastic, it's terrible. But actually, things turned in such a way there that my boss left, and then I got an opportunity to take on their role. And so I then just kind of started on this path of going, well, that's cool. This is really interesting. I'm learning things. I'll go to the next step and the next step. And so I've kind of, from there, I've never actually then gone and done the OE, but I've just stepped my way through a variety of roles. And so that first company was a plastic food packaging company. I learned printing, and I learned a huge amount there about, particularly from our customers in the food sector, and so in FMCG, and about how they understood users' needs. So not just what people said they wanted, but actually what was the emotional driver underneath that. And the learnings from that actually taught me a huge amount that I sort of took forward into future roles. So I spent about 13 years in the manufacturing sector, and then moved in through from quality into sales and operations and various things like that. And then I moved across into medtech sector, where I started off in operations and moved into the CEO role of Dynamic Controls here in Christchurch, which are doing control systems for wheelchairs and things. But that was an amazing role because we got to be based here in New Zealand as a subsidiary of a US company. So we got loads of autonomy. We sold all over the world and got to make a real difference in people's lives. And that whole concept of understanding our wheelchair users' emotional drivers was quite foreign to a very kind of engineering motors kind of an industry, if you like, which seems weird because, you think, well, everyone would be thinking about the user's experience in the wheelchair, but they kind of weren't. So bringing that FMCG experience to our thinking and dynamic controls really made a big difference to our innovation path and the experiences we're able to create for our customers and their end users. And then, so that was manufacturing and software, hardware, and so forth. And then from there, I 2.5 years ago so I was with Dynamic for about 11 years, and then moved to Jade about 2.5 years ago, and that sort of cemented then the move away from manufacturing in total and across to software. And so so that's been sort of that journey from manufacturing to manufacturing, including software, to just software. That's kind of feels like a microcosm of part of the New Zealand story in some ways.
Hey, there's a really interesting question in there, because one of the things that one of the events we're going to be doing for our Flint people, we haven't announced it yet, we're doing a two-part series on how to plan your career, given, we've been through a pandemic, because, the economic environment and job redundancies, etc., is slowly hitting us. And one of the questions I know that the people have already asked me about was, how do you identify the skills that you can take across industries, particularly in leadership? And you've moved from, printing and packaging across to software, like you said. So how did you identify or know the sorts of skills that you wanted or could be able to take from one industry to another?
That's an interesting question. I didn't really think of that up front, if you like, but so maybe first in terms of career planning, when I'd been at the packaging company for maybe about a year or so, and the CEO brought in a guy to sort of an organizational design guy who got us talking, spoke with us individually about what our aspirations were. And I hadn't really stopped to think since I'd left kind of physics and decided astronauting wasn't going to be my thing. And so I hadn't really thought about what next, and that discussion really got me thinking about actually what do I want next. I thought, well, I would really like to be the CEO or the MD of a large company. In fact, that's what I want to be doing. And so then that then helped me to identify the steps I wanted to take to get there. So I was quite planful about that and set dates and targets and that sort of thing. So I've stepped my way through against that plan, which is all well and good. But I think in terms of looking at how do you take skills from one industry to another, to me that is really comes down to examining your way of thinking, or building your skills in terms of your way of thinking, and perhaps in terms of also the people leadership side of things. So if you kind of think about what are the skills that people need, no matter what industry it is, they're always going to need people leaders, or every industry needs people leaders. And then there are coordinating type roles like program managers and project managers, for example, which kind of run across things. And I think to me anyway, rather than being a technical expert, bit of a jack of all trades, and so it's the people side of things which really was my path across those. And I think that probably then when I look at how to take something from one industry to another, I'm usually looking at a people-based thing and how to bring that from one to another, or understanding a behavior.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Hey, look, we've asked everybody this question, and I know I sent it through to you, but it's sort of the negative one to start with. But can you think back of an example in your leadership journey when you learnt something that you probably should have done slightly differently or done better, and sort of how's that influenced what you do now?
Oh yes, there's one that really stands out in my head, and it always kind of grounds me when I when I think about my journey, and kind of if I'm in a situation like this, it always sort of flags up, and that is that. So early on in my people leadership career, I was manufacturing manager in an organization, and we brought a couple of companies together, And there was an individual who was very, very technically good, and in a leadership role, like a team leader sort of a role, but really had really bad behaviors. So a bit of a workplace bully. And I knew that values were a really important part of how to lead and how to create a great organization. But we weren't in this company, we weren't explicit about our values. So I never sort of knew how to attack it and how to deal with it. And I didn't really think about who to ask to help me to deal with that either. We didn't sort of have an HR department or something like that either. And so I passed my problem person on to someone else, which was just awful. So I passed my problem. I knew it was a problem. I passed it on to someone else because I wasn't sure how to deal with it. And then that person carried on the organization for many, many years and caused a lot of bad experiences for a lot of people. And I always think back to if I'd stopped and asked for help and been braver, I could have dealt with that and saved a whole lot of people a whole lot of grief for a long time. And so always that thing, it always comes back to me whenever I see situations that aren't playing out well. One is, what's the leader doing or not doing? Where are the values at play in this? How obvious are they? Are the conversations happening around behavior and values? And is this person really a fit? And if they're not, they're for everyone, for themselves and us, they're best off.
Yeah. Those hard conversations, they're the tough things to learn as you go through your leadership career, aren't they? But once you realize that this is part of the journey, you've got to get into it. Hey, look, there's this word that's used a lot, and I'm just listening to you, and it's this authenticity, bringing yourself to the role and the job that you are. I mean, what do you think authentic leadership means, and how does it play a role in what you do? And I'm going to be a little bit, not controversial, but a little bit. We did a seminar, a webinar with your team last night. There was 4 blokes on the screen. They all work. 3 of them work for you. You are a female leader, so can you also bring that into it as well? Because there's a lot of talk around at the moment about how well women prime ministers or women leaders have done during the COVID period against the blokes. And I just wonder if you could perhaps bring a little bit of your personal experience to that.
Okay. Well, maybe I'd first say just to that. I think in my leadership team, of my direct team, I think basically 50% of us are female. So, so some really good diversity there. In that sense, we're trying to look at how to bring more diversity into the rest of the organisation as well. But good to start with the top. But then in terms of that question of authenticity, so I mean, I was brought up. My parents always said, be yourself. It's always a better way to be. And then I think along the way, I've found that by just being myself, if I bluff something, I'm never going to get to ultimately where I want to get to. People can see through it, and it's not how I want to lead. So being myself is really important, and part of that is bringing my whole self to work. And that means, so like many, many years ago, when I first started at work, I was a little bit worried about the fact that I had a same-sex partner and how would a factory environment sort of deal with that and how would that play out. And actually, I learned a huge amount out of that around the value of just being myself. And actually, everyone was cool with stuff and it was no big deal. And it really kind of cemented, I think, my relationships with the guys on the floor and with the rest of the organization in different ways, because I was just there being myself, and it was a better relationship as a consequence of that. And that's played out through my career, if you like, in that same sort of way. But being yourself, sometimes people think, well, being yourself is a thing you do as opposed to being, and also it also doesn't excuse you from examining or challenging yourself. So I think quite often people go, "Oh, I'm just being myself." If you think I'm a bit of an ass, it's just me. It's like, well, actually, probably you should just stop and lead yourself or examine yourself, challenge yourself about your motives. So I try to challenge myself about my motives. Why have I thought this? Why am I in this paradigm? Have I gone down a rabbit hole? What is this about? Why might I be influenced into thinking this way? And if I try to be aware of myself and challenge myself, then I think I'm better at bringing myself authentically, if you like, or being genuine in how I show up. And so that's a really important part. It's something that we've been learning around a sort of a framework or a tool set at Jade called Crucial Conversations. And many people have heard of this, but it's been around for many years, but it actually is a really great tool set because it starts with examining yourself and your motives before you then get into the kind of stories, if you like, that or difficult conversations as a consequence. So I think that's a part of it. And then to your question in terms of the women leader piece with the COVID situation and so forth, I think to me it's not so much about, if you like, gender might be a symptom of the fact that, so gender differences or focus on gender to me is maybe a symptom of what you're actually looking for is diversity of thought and experience. And if you bring together people who've had diverse thought and experience and maybe in their journey with being different from the norm in some way, they've had to bring their authentic, transparent self to conversations, maybe means that that they're better equipped to be transparent or be genuine in that way than maybe someone who's always been in a norm situation and hasn't had to challenge themselves to step outside of that. So I think it's more about diversity of experience and how you recognize that in yourself and what you bring and how you bring that to work. That's kind of more important.
Hey, look, there's some real gems in just what I've heard from you, Charlotte, that if I had lots of time, I'd like to talk to you. Just one of them is that thing about if you're being an ass, you're being authentic. It's not an excuse. You're absolutely right. It's about we develop through our lives as people and as individuals, and we learn some of those things, sometimes quite painfully, what we should and shouldn't do or how we should express ourselves.
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, so that's you as a leader. What do you look for in leaders, and particularly, this will be viewed by people in that sort of demographic 18 to 30. What sort of things should they be thinking about in developing as a leader?
Sure. When I think of this, I think about an interview I did for one of my team. When we were looking for a person to come to this role, and there was and this particular team member, when they interviewed, there was just something about them that absolutely got me. And I think when I sort of examined that, what it was that they were just really obviously good at leading themselves. So they understood who they were, fairly well, and they had developed through knowing themselves and being sort of tested along the way and being aware of that, they developed a resilience, and they just had this real emotional maturity, if you like, and that lead yourself piece is such a fundamental starting point. So when I came across that, it was like, oh man, I think I know that I've got the right person here. It could be all sorts of other things, but actually they know how to lead themselves. So that's kind of the first piece. And then I think beyond that, you then get into things that maybe a little bit more obvious, if you like, but around empathy and curiosity. Both of those things are super important for me, what I look for. And then fundamentally, even if you've got the most techie role in the world, I'm looking for someone who, even if it's not a people leader role, even if it's a technical role, I'm still looking for someone who gets a buzz out of unlocking people. And so, even if it's a deeply technical role, I want them to be thinking about, how do I share this with others? How do I, that insight or that spark, that aha moment that I had, 5 years ago when I came across this thing and this technical thing and it really drove me on, how do I bring that to others? So how do I light sparks in other people? And so that's, it's very, very much that. It doesn't matter whether it's a formal people leadership role or not. Definitely in technical roles, I think sometimes people go, well, there's a technical path and there's a people path, and you sort of choose one or the other, and almost in a way that kind of allows technical people to, or kind of forces maybe technical people to abdicate from some of the people piece. But actually, the best technical people I've come across are the ones who are really passionate about sharing that excitement with others.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, you've got someone at your organisation, Edward Liebenberger, who we've spoken to several times. He's got that passion about the things that he does, and it comes across. Look, we've only got a couple more minutes, and I just want to talk about, the reason why we're talking remotely and why we started this is because we went into lockdown, incarceration, whatever you want to call it. Someone used that word yesterday. I wasn't quite sure why. But what leadership skills do you think you have come to the fore for you during this little period of time?
I think a couple of things. One is we've all had to, within myself and my team more broadly, we've all had to really think about how we connect with each other one-on-one. So, and the importance of those one-on-one conversations that you kind of take for granted as you kind of slide past each other on the way to the coffee cart. But actually we've put real energy and being present for those one-to-one conversations in a different way. So that's a really big part of the, if you like, the sort of personal leadership side of things. The other is I've just been blown away by our people and their resilience and inventiveness and their willingness to try new things and to and all around, how do we help our customers in this situation? And so so I've seen some great things happen within the way my people are working. But the reason that matters is because it's been focused around, when we think of our customers and the experiences they're going through, some of them have been quite heavily impacted, and so I love seeing the team focused on, well, how do we help them in this situation? Let's understand this. How can we help them through this? What's a little bit of magic that we can bring to this situation? So it's that, in terms of the leadership side of things, that's a big part of the last wee while. And then I think lastly, the other part is there've been some real benefits for us out of working remotely. And we're looking at how do we capture the benefits of that, sort of the level playing field that we've been getting out of all being remote when you've got multiple sites. So how do we capture the benefits of that and the benefits of before the lockdown? And so that kind of hybrid way of working is something which is we're sort of playing with at the moment. What might that look like? And the challenge for myself, what I've been sort of challenging myself on is, but how do you lead when you're in a remote situation? How do you lead if all your people are distributed? What does that look and feel like? Because I'm used to particularly coming from manufacturing, I'm used to, you walk the floor, right? And you're on the gemba, and then but now in this way you're not there in that same sort of way. So how do you do that? And there are lots of really good tools and tips that I've picked up from others, and that the team have picked up from others that we've been using and deploying, and that's been great. But I still have an uneasiness about how do I change my paradigm around what real leadership looks like and feels like to others from me in a distributed workforce kind of situation.
Yeah, cool. Hey, look, I just want to ask you one last question. It's a bit more personal based, more than the CEO, Jade. But we've been through this period. We've all suffered. Well, suffered isn't the right word. We've all gone through all sorts of emotions. During lockdown. Being happy, not happy. We're heading into what I think will be quite tricky times. You got any personal piece of advice that you might want to just share with our future leaders around how to keep going, how to stay focused?
Sure. There's always a risk with these things that it sounds kind of trite, and so I sort of apologize in advance if it sounds that way, because I think we are in difficult times, and will continue to be, and for some even more so. So it's easier to say some of these things, it's harder to do. But what I would, if I'd come back to the core of it, is that when we get stressed, the anxiety means that we start to build up stories about what's going on. And if you're feeling sort of isolated or away from the people who used to be your work family or any of those, even your actual family and friends, if you're feeling isolated, it's very easy to get totally stuck in those stories and to go down rabbit holes. So what I'd really say to people is try to stop and think about the things maybe you're spiraling with, lay them out, name them as stories, and then, you know, we all have agency, you know, to a larger or lesser degree. Use that agency to just take small steps to step away from the stories, to reach out to someone for help, whether that's like in a mental health way or a financial way, or even a hey, look, I've got an idea, but I'm spinning in my own mud trying to figure this one out. Can you know, can I bounce it off you? Or in some cases, actually helping others can be a good way to step away from your own things as well. So I think don't get stuck in the stories, identify them, name them, shame them, put them off to one side, and use that, you know, use that agency, just to, even if it's small steps each day, just to start to take hold of it, or take some control back.
Yeah, thank you so much, Charlotte. Hey, look, everybody, we're going to call it to a close in a moment. This video from this will obviously be on our YouTube channel later today. Well, I'm having a bit of fun editing videos today, and also, if you haven't picked up, we now a podcast. So we're taking the audio from these and we're putting them on the Apple iPod app and Google Podcasts, if you haven't seen that. So people can listen to these again, and you can share them with people. And when you're out and about, in a 2 weeks' time, we're doing our next CxOBytes. We're talking to Jolie Hodson, who's the CEO at Spark, and that should be great as well. But look, Charlotte, it's been a real pleasure to speak with you, and thank you so much for giving up your time this morning for us.
Oh, not at all. Thanks so much for the opportunity to chat, Craig. It's really cool. Thank you.
All right, we'll catch you again. We'll see you around. Bye, everybody.
Cheers, then. Bye-bye.